to this region of California. I'm originally from San Jose, and I've been working for the city of San Jose for the last 8 years. So it's an honor to be chosen for the position and looking forward to getting to work here. Thank you.
That's wonderful. Welcome.
Thank you.
And then, yes, we do have a presentation by Anna, who is the Assistant Director of Development Services, and she'll be talking about conditioning private development.
Awesome. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Anna, as David mentioned. Thank you so much for having me here. He's going to be running the PowerPoint presentation for me as I run through it. We can go ahead and start off. So what I thought I would do is just kind of give a very quick overview of the Development Services Department, if you were not kind of familiar with it already. But it shows here, this is on our website, and it shows all of the different divisions of development services. Operations and engagement, having to do with administrative stuff and budget and citizen participation program meetings, development, planning, and code enforcement, which is what we're going to be talking about mostly. And so I'll get into that later. And then policy planning and housing, so that's all of the general plan updates, long-range stuff, and then dealing with our Section 8 housing and managing all of that. And then land development and building, which is more of like the regulatory permits and the building permits. And then you have development engineering, which is more inspections and front counter for engineering. And then sustainability, which is climate action plan, coastal zone management. So as you can see, there's a lot of stuff going on in development services. So I just kind of wanted to give a snapshot of that to have you understand that a little bit. So on the next slide, really what the development planning does is looking at discretionary projects. We also call them entitlement permits. And the goal is to look at compliance with all of the zoning codes, the plans, the policies, guidelines. And this is just a small list of some of them that we actually review projects against, listed on here. Not sure if you can see that very well, but this is also on our website under the development planning and code enforcement section. And so the discretionary review, when I say that, it can mean any type of permit ranging from tentative maps, tentative parcel maps, use permits, design review permits, coastal development permits, variances, and then also planning commission and city council interpretations. And so these types of permits are where we are able to place conditions of approval on a project. It gives us the authority to do that. And so it's mainly private development review that comes in. Obviously, our team also reviews our CIP projects, our own city projects. They go through all the different discipline reviews. But what happens is the applicants come to the counter, and our planners and engineers and fire, we have all those divisions up front at the counter, and they come in and they get their preliminary questions answered. And so we have a pre-intake questionnaire that we use internally, make sure we're kind of honing in on what the requests are. We offer what's called SAC meetings, Staff Advisory Committee meetings, where applicants can come in if they have bigger projects, and all the disciplines are at the table. It's free of charge for them, and they can bring their concept to us, and we can give them feedback. And sometimes at that point, we'll say, hey, we may condition this project to do X, Y, and Z at that point, and give them a heads up if we know clearly that we are able to at that point. So then once they're ready to come in, we do an intake process, and then the planners are the ones that actually do a completeness review of it to make sure that they have all the material that we can kind of hit the ground running and really dive into the details of, is this project in compliance? So at that point, it gets routed to all of the different disciplines, and I put them here on the slide. So you can see it gets routed to all of these different divisions. And engineering, parks and rec, water district, sewer district, building, code enforcement, fire, sometimes the sheriff, depending on the type of project. And that's when all the disciplines get into like the real meat of the review. And as they're doing the review, they're thinking about, what will I want to condition this project, and can I? And I think the biggest question is, can we, right? And so it's very important to rely on all of those plans, codes, policies that are in place that tell us what the overall standards are of development within the city of Encinitas, right? Those were all developed because we have a vision of what they are. And you saw that there's a bikeway master plan, there's the recreational trails master plan, and then the open space, I know is a longer name, document that Parks has, that kind of plans out all of the parks, the active transportation plan. And so the planning and engineering, as well as other divisions and especially parks, we're all looking at those documents to see when they're coming in with this discretionary review, which is conceptual. I'm not sure if you're all familiar with the discretionary review. It's more of the concept. They're coming in and saying, this is what we want to do. And after that, they actually have to come in with grading permits, building permits, and that's when they get into the real details of the project design. And so it's really important for us to catch in the early stages when we're looking at these different discretionary permits, what do we want to put in writing so that when they're coming in with their grading permits and building permits, that we can make sure we catch it, right? So if one staff is either on vacation or has left for another city, I don't know why they would want to do that, but in that case, there's a condition that's on there that kind of reminds that the project gets routed again, and they say, oh, wow, okay, it looks like this is now a grading permit, and let me see if they actually did what I conditioned the project to do, and you kind of check that off and make sure. And so that kind of happens in the discretionary review process. And then, let's see, if you can go to the next slide. These next few slides really kind of show what gives the different disciplines the purview and the right to impose conditions on a project. We get asked a lot, how can you ask us to do this? What gives you the right? And our municipal code luckily identifies, why and how we can. We have that purview. You're coming in, you as an applicant are coming in with a project, so it's this type of permit allows us to ask you for conditions of approval. And of course, you'll see in letter B, it says that it has to be reasonably related to the project of what's coming forward, right? And so a lot of times we want to ask for something, but it may not be reasonably related to what they're proposing. They may be just doing a facade upgrade, and it may not trigger us to be able to ask for something. Sometimes we get lucky and we ask and they go ahead and provide us something, but that's not usually the case, because obviously a lot of people are trying to save money and they're trying to, do the best that they can with what they have. The next one, it's just it's the same wording, it's for use permits, and then we'll go one more, which is coastal development permits, and it adds another language on here which talks about posting of security. Some cases in which we do this, engineering does this a lot, where they have a bond for all of their improvements, the grading, the public improvements that they are going to be putting in place, and we bond for that so that if they walk away, we're protected, and we can kind of clean up anything that's been left there that can be a public nuisance or a safety issue. So this allows us to do that, and I think there's actually other parts of the code that not just under coastal development permits that allow us to do this, but this is just kind of one example that I wanted to show you in which we utilize requesting those types of securities from them. So then the next one, what I did was I jotted down just some kind of example conditions of approval that we place on a project. And one of the things that I just I guess I'll go through all of them and note why I wrote certain things that I did. So I say provide a 5-foot trail along the property frontage that shall be decomposed granite as identified in the recreational trails master plan. So it's very important for us to say, this is what is allowing us to ask you to do it, the trails master plan, and this is why we're asking it to be 5 foot wide, because it's established already in that plan in which it needs to be that wide. And oh, by the way, it says that it has to be DG, and so we want to just make it very clear and easy for the next person for when they're reviewing the project to check that off. And then provide an ADA ramp connection for the project sidewalk to existing trail Y. Let's say it's just a made-up trail, right? So we see that the discretionary reviewers see that there's an off-site trail, and so we try to make sure that they're connecting to that trail, and whatever they're designing, you know, they're having some sort of compatibility with its surroundings as well. If we can't ask for something on site, we're trying to ask for something as much as possible. Then the next one, I say public right-of-way improvements shall include curb, gutter, and sidewalk pursuant to the city's public road standards. That is the first document that we go to because those are established standards in place. The specific plans also have road sections in which they say you have to have a sidewalk here or maybe a trail or a path, whatever they call it, in the section itself. So we rely on documents that are already in place to place that condition of approval again. And then there's another one that we do is we require open space easements to be recorded on properties. These can range from, and I listed them here, we have steep hillsides, 25% gradient or more are a sensitive resource in the city. And so there's a whole process in our hillside inland bluff overlay zone section in which we require them to preserve as much of that steep slope area as possible. They have a certain percentage that they can go up to, and we even push them to go below that percentage as much as feasible. Coastal bluff areas, when somebody comes in with a coastal bluff project, we require an open space easement on that bluff property because they're not allowed to do anything anymore on that. Wetland buffers, so we have a lot of wetlands throughout the city. So those are just some examples, and so we require recording open space easements so that they're preserved in perpetuity, and a lot of times they're on their private property, and so they are maintaining it. There are cases in which we may coordinate with parks and we may say, you know, who's gonna be maintaining this? If there's a trail that's coming through, we decide at that time, are we allowed to ask the developer to maintain it themselves? Do we need to take it on? And that's all very important to iron out during the entitlement phase of a project. Then there are times where we may know that there's a trail right in front of a property, but there's triggers in which engineering is the main division that actually requires the improvements to occur. So that's step one. Is it triggering the improvement to occur? And then they coordinate with parks, CIP, Public Works, after that to make sure that we're all on the same page of what those improvements are. So this is an example of when it's required for residential, commercial, and they rely on these thresholds here. So if you're doing less than 500 square feet of habitable area, you don't have to give right-of-way dedication, you don't have to do public improvements. But as soon as you go over that, now you do have to, but you have to give the right-of-way so that we as a city, if we have a CIP project coming forward, then we can actually have the land to do the trail improvement. But they don't trigger necessarily to do the improvement themselves. And then as you can see there's some caveats here. And so that's kind of where it starts. Then one condition of approval that we place on pretty much all projects, it's a boilerplate condition that I think is on the next slide. So it's paying mitigation fees. And one of the biggest ones has to do with, that you may all be interested in, are the parks fees. And if you go to the next slide, those are the two that are listed, acquisition and development park fees. And so we always make sure that we add this boilerplate condition and so that we know that it's covered. But mostly when this happens is when you have new units. So it's only a residential fee that applies to parks. We do not have a commercial development fee that's associated with park fees. There is the fee example of the fees, the other document, if you can pull that up. But so that is the planner's responsibility. They add that condition of approval on there, and then the fees are collected prior to occupancy of the unit. And sometimes when somebody's demolishing an existing unit and building it back up, they actually are credited. They don't have to pay it again because it's already assume that they've already paid into this, and so you don't want to double charge them. But this table here just shows the fees that are associated per dwelling unit, and it's based on what zone you're in, and then you charge it. And if you actually scroll down, there's more. So this one is actually, if you could scroll up really quick, it says parkland acquisition and park development fees. So that's A, and then we can go to the next one. If we can keep going. The next one is letter B. There we go. Open space land acquisition. And then as you can see, it says there the purpose. There's, it was based on a fee impact study that was done in 2015. And there's resolutions that are referenced in this document as well, and how those were all assessed. And then if you go further down, trail development fees. So these are all collected for new residential units. And the way I understand it, it goes into a general fund and then is allocated to certain projects that are already established in the master plans that have been developed. And so those can, I think, vary depending on, I think, where city council goes and prioritizes the funds to go. And I think that's the last one. See, or is there another one? Oh, there we go. I lied. Community facilities fees. So these are all collected again at the building permit. So that is the one condition that the planners do place on projects. So that, in a nutshell, is the process in which we go to. I'm hoping that's what you were all looking for, but I'm happy to answer any questions based on the presentation, or if there's something that you want to hear more about that I can come back and maybe provide more information on, then I'm happy to do that. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you very much. That was awesome, very informative. I imagine there will be a lot of questions. And I have a bunch, but I will let you
One
guys
quick
go.
one.
Go ahead.
I learned the code is missing something pretty important with regard to burn down structures. And I was wondering, I'm speaking specifically of 1478 Neptune. It's been there for 3 years, and they just now got an abatement notice. And I've been to code enforcement, and I could find nothing in the code to get this person to tear down the burned down structure. So I was wondering what we could do to get something added. It's very personal. Something added to the code, how you go about doing something like that?
Sure, we do code amendments on occasion. I think we have one coming up possibly in 2023. Sometimes they're just code cleanups, and then sometimes there's a full analysis of making modifications to the municipal code. And so this can be something that I can put on the list, because we have a running list of changes we would like to make to the code, and then we can see how that fits within it.
At District 1, council knows plenty about it.
Okay, great, you're welcome.
Does anyone else have any questions? Okay. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I just have a question regarding the conditioning process. It sounds like Parks and Rec can ask for certain things, and can you describe that process? Based on your list, it seemed like some of those things were, of course, you would do that, like the ADA ramp, and then like if depending on the funding or the size of the project, like who gets to ask, and do you gauge things like how big the developer is and things like that? Is like how do the negotiations happen, I guess? So
I think our philosophy is we always ask the question if we think it's going to be for the public good. So if we see a connection, or if they can extend their trail beyond their frontage, so many feet, then we ask whether it's small or large, because it just all depends, right, on the situation. So we always like to ask the question, and it's whether or not we can require it. It's based on standards that are in place. And so if we can make a direct, nexus to the request, then it can happen, but not all the time.
Okay, thank you.
I'll add, Anna mentioned the SAC meetings, and so those are meetings where all the different disciplines get together with the applicant. It's at the applicant's request. They're actually really great. It's a fantastic service that the city provides for developers. And in those meetings, the developer, like Anna mentioned, is at an early stage conceptual, and we just have a conversation. They'll have a bunch of questions that they come in with and say, these are my understandings of these requirements. Can I do X, Y, and Z instead of A, B, and C? And as a part of that conversation, we'll say, well, it looks like you're adjacent to this trail. It sure would be great if we were able to get that as a part. Well, we're already going to condition that because it's in the Trails Master Plan, but is there something else that would go on top of that that would, like Anna mentioned, be to the public benefit?
Okay, thank you. Yeah, because it seems like the roads with the curbs, I mean, that's in the law, right, or in your code, so that isn't really, I wouldn't think that would be an ask more so than just saying this has to happen, but if you want like a horseshoe pit, you know, next to a trail, then that's more, but this all takes place in the same process? Okay, thank you.
I have a couple of questions about, and actually my first was on the same issue, which is it when Parks and Rec review those plans, is that our opportunity to highlight what's on the Trails Master Plan or what opportunities might exist? And if we miss that opportunity, has the window closed?
That is our best opportunity.
Okay.
And when myself and other staff review the development plans, the first thing I do is pull up the GIS layers and then cross-reference that with the plans for the development to see if it's on the property, proximate to the property, or where it will be. Most of the other disciplines, fire and engineering, they have a much more exhaustive list of things that they need to look at. For parks, it's relatively small.
Okay.
Largely just trail connections and things adjacent to parks. We do have a couple throughout the city where folks are directly abutting a park, and there's some nexus there. But generally, it's really about making those trail connections. So that is our best chance. And I wouldn't say all the time, but many times we have a good idea when they come in already, because we're aware of development that's happening in the area. I mentioned one on the parks tour that we had known about for a while that we thought we might be able to make a connection. That's gone away, but when we know that property comes back in, we'll already be aware of it.
Mm-hmm. And what's the recourse if you've approved a plan for, let's just say, to include a specific trail segment or 5 feet or DG or whatever the components of that are? What's the recourse if they don't comply? Or is that not really an issue you've had?
So they're required to comply if it's a standard. And so it would be something like not issuing a grading permit if we don't see it on the plans.
Okay,
So we'll hold that permit. They would not be able to begin development if it's not shown
okay.
correctly. Correct, a construction change, yep. Mhm.
So then, I know that there's been a lot of new state bills that are really trying to prioritize multifamily developments over any other standards or design reviews or other, basically superseding everything else when it comes to we need to get as many houses built as quickly as possible and ideally at the lowest price possible. Is there any risk of some of these conditioning efforts being removed from the process to comply with some of these new state bills?
So far, the state bills that have come forward state that we are allowed to request improvements that are an objective standard already in place. And that's why I stress the recreational trails master plan, the public road standards, and things like that.
Okay.
So anything that has to do, especially with public health and safety, if we say a road is supposed to be a certain width, then that is more of a requirement.
Okay. Okay. Well, I think that's just good knowledge to have too as we revisit any of these master reports. And then I have 2 more. Is that okay? Okay. Another one I was interested in is about applying some of these standards to residential versus multi-unit. And a specific example is I know the trail along Rancho Santa Fe Road is something that we've discussed a lot, and some of the homeowners have built fences into what is technically not, it should be kind of available to the city land. If a new owner were to come, they wanted permits to do something else on that property, are we still trying to leverage the Trails Master Plan and things like that on a residential level to say, we'll issue it, but we need to rectify this existing nonconformity?
Yes, so if they are doing something in which it meets the threshold that we can ask for public improvements, that's when the opportunity is there to ask for that to be corrected.
Okay. And then you were discussing the mitigation fees at the end and how you believe it goes into the general fund. And I just wanted to ask more about, do those fees, do they have to be allocated to a certain use? Or can they be used for anything within the Parks and Rec purview of the general fund? And then do we have a line of sight as to how much we have in there and what we anticipate using it for next? Or is it because it's part of the general fund, it goes wherever it's needed?
There's a municipal code on this, it's 23.98, that directs how the funds get allocated. And as we showed, there's a distinct fund for park acquisition and a distinct fund for park development. Those are tracked, they're a part of the budget that's open and available to see. I can't speak to where they're gonna go next. Those will get prioritized by council in their budget cycles.
Okay.
But they are standalone funds, not in the big pool of the general fund. I mean, they're part of the overall general fund, but they are standalone. You, as far as I understand, can't take the park development fees and use them for a sewer trunk line, because they're dedicated for that purpose, and it
Okay.
falls under other state codes.
Okay, but like a park development fee theoretically could be used to fix the backstops at the park. Like you have a fund for any park or I don't know if that's new development or maintenance and ongoing, but it can fall into anything. Like if a developer puts in I'm thinking of Olympus Park and how that came to be, because I know that the development was built a while ago, but people remember that this money had been collected to be allocated to a park. And I'm just trying to better understand.
That's exactly how part of Olympus was funded, was for the park development fees.
Yeah.
And the municipal code states that it's for elements that are specifically in the Parks and Rec master plan.
Okay.
So we wouldn't use it for O&M or things like that, but they are for providing those amenities that may not be there.
Okay.
Or deficiencies or gaps that we have in the master plan.
Okay. Thank you. And those are all of my questions. Anyone else? Well, thank you so much. It was really informative and helpful just to see it all broken down that way. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for having me.
Okay. Well, there are no oral communications, it would appear. No changes to the agenda. So we will move to approve of the minutes. Oh, okay, thank you. For September 20th. And I think we're going to do, the voting wasn't working earlier, so we might have to do okay. So we'll just do a verbal vote.
Is there a motion and a second?
Commissioner,
Brad works, Commissioner Hanson works too. I move to approve.
I was like, oh, wait, what do I call you in the context? I'll move the motion to second.
Okay. I'll go ahead and take a vote. Chair Lappin,
Approve, aye.
Vice Chair Ritter,
I was not at that meet. I was not at that meeting, so I'll abstain.
Commissioner Elliott,
Aye.
Commissioner Hanson, and Commissioner Warren.
Aye.
Motion passes.
I can't even remember when September 20th was. Like, what month is it? Oh, our special meeting. Okay, is there a motion to approve our special meeting minutes from October 11th?
I move to approve.
And I'll second.
All right, I'll take another vote. Chair Lappin,
Aye. Aye.
Vice Chair Ritter,
Aye.
Commissioner Elliott,
Aye.
Commissioner Hanson, and Commissioner Warren.
Aye.
All right, the motion passes.
All right. Okay, so we'll move to the work plan. Okay, so item number 1, we've now completed this. Can we just skip over it for subsequent meetings?
Yep, the only thing we'll need to do is if we want to have any final language, but we can talk about that when we get towards the final meetings for this work plan year.
Okay. And I imagine we'll be discussing the park tour later on, but it was awesome. I saw a lot of new things. So thank you very much. Or do we want to talk about that now? We'll talk about it later. Okay. Item number 2, attend city-sponsored events, serving as city ambassadors. Well, we can all read it. Okay. The big new item is the holiday parade. Commissioner, well, that's what I was gonna say. Would you like to give us a quick update?
I sent 123 emails last year,
Oh my gosh.
so this is to save 122 of them.
Oh. Oh, perfect.
Yes, you did. Like it or not.
Wow, well done.
We can certainly discuss it.
Yeah.
Just go down the list.
Let's do it.
Item 1 that I assigned to myself is complete.
Well done.
So I'm done now. The narrative is something that's called out in the application. It's just a couple paragraphs probably about parks, the commission itself, and our entry. Should be pretty simple. And with Stephen not here, you can assign it to him. And then signs. Last year, we entered kind of last minute. We got some small signs, and I don't know what the budget is for them. I assigned or Commissioner Elliott and Commissioner O'Halloran the signs, mainly because they walked with them last year. And I should back up. I was thinking we'd do the same thing this year as we did
Right.
last year with the e-bikes. And, the theme is classic Encinitas. And I think Encinitas is becoming classic e-bikes. So it's part and parcel, one and the same now. So the signs require a couple of things. They require the ordering. And last year, the day of the parade, I went to Costco or Home Depot and I bought PVC.
Oh.
And I made sign holders so we could walk around carrying the city signs.
Very
So-
important. Do you still have those?
No, I haven't. Hopefully they're being used as sprinklers somewhere.
Darn.
But no, I don't have that, and I'd be happy to help. I mean, it was pretty easy. It's like playing with Legos. So if we want to do that same material, I can certainly help on that. And then decoration, it's the same 2 people assigned to the decorations. And I think you guys worked together last year on decorations?
I think Commissioner Warren did the bulk of it. I just attached it to the bikes.
I remember deciding where to meet, and it took a long time.
So we're
yeah.
already exhausted, and
Yeah, I think-
it's only October. No, so maybe we can, I don't know if we can add a little bit more to our bikes now that we've got a little lead time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be a little bit more fancy. Santa hats for everybody. I don't know that everybody has a Santa hat, just things along those lines. But now that I've dispersed it all, you guys can email us one at a time. Last year was just, caught up in the Brown Act and getting information out and
Yeah,
getting,
it was hard.
to here, to there. And, it's kind of confusing, and occasionally I left somebody out. So there's our assignments, and I left open something down at the bottom called Other Considerations. Last year, we had 2 people walking. I don't know if the same 2 people want to walk or if everybody wants to ride a bike. And we can decide that in November, and whether or not there are any other considerations that I haven't thought of.
Well, I have a quick question. My children have wanted to know if we could throw out candy. No. Okay. They were like, "Can you guys give something away?" And I said, "I don't know." So I said I would ask. Okay.
I definitely think you could add your children to the back of the bike.
They've asked that too.
I think that would add a lot. That would humanize us some, right? Yeah, so I definitely think bringing them along would be a lot more fun.
Well, for some of us.
And spouses too.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no reason they can't ride along, right?
That's funny. Staff, will you be in the parade with us this year?
Staff will be all over the place supporting the parade.
Okay.
On the sidelines, yeah.
So I'd like to add diversity to the e-bike parade, and I'll add my electric scooter, so I'll ride that.
Perfect.
What did you do last year? Oh, you weren't there.
He
You were in
wasn't
Hawaii
there.
without me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was so fun. I can't wait. I'm so excited.
It was so fast last year.
It was fast.
Hopefully there's more participants this year. Because, I mean, first of all, we were like the third party out. So it started at 5:30 and we were done at 5:35. It's just like, really?
So
And that's
fast,
the good
those
part.
e-bikes.
Yeah.
Yeah, next time I'm just going to go around in circles. Because
You need to-
I like to shake everybody's hand as I'm going past.
Yeah, obey the speed limit on your bikes, please.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For signs, we can manufacture the signs. that
You did
need.
last year.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so just let us know what you need. Give us plenty of lead time, please, because we have multiple commissions to make signs for.
Yeah, and that was part of the, I mean, I think we decided like a week or two before that we were going to participate, and it was just all kind of thrown together. So this year we've got, I mean, this is on the master plan from June or July, so.
Let me
doing
just
good.
ask real quick while we're all here. I mean, are any of you guys going to need like some smaller signs for your e-bikes or scooters, or do we just need the big sign to carry? Any thoughts you'd like to share?
Well, I was going to ask, do we have any, I was looking at what exactly the new tradition means or what the interpretation of that is, but if we had some other unifying outfit or some other, like, just in case a sign on everyone's bike doesn't work or scooters, there's some other unifying element that could visually unify us behind a sign.
First of all, I think most, and please correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I think most of the entrants are interpreting this as classic, and they're going kind of old school. So,
Like a
Woody's-
vintage.
Yeah,
Okay.
a little more vintage. So, we could try to span that and do some vintage and some e-bikes and
Yeah.
some,
That's the new old traditions.
yeah,
Well,
we could try to do it.
Do we have any like vintage Parks and Rec shirts or signs or any like throwbacks that we could bring new life to?
A lot of our old signs are metal and illegible because they've been under
Rusted.
the elements for so
Yeah.
long. Shirts, I don't know. I can check and see what we might have. It would be kind of funny if we had something that was older.
Yeah.
Say that shirts are kind of irrelevant because typically it's cold.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, it's
So
a top layer.
whatever you're wearing underneath is going to be covered up.
I wonder if we could do like Hawaiian shirts or some like kind of quirky, well, and over our jackets.
And maybe the signs could incorporate some of the older, like black and white, old-time photos of Encinitas, or some way to show that we're, connecting with the classic Encinitas at the same time. But I think, if I'm understanding, we're saying the e-bikes are part of the new classic.
Yeah.
This is Manager Staten. While we do produce the signs for the commission, I do not believe that they are customized for each commission. As you can imagine, that is a lot of staff time to design and create something for each and every commission. So we can double check with our supervisor that handles that, but my understanding is that your sign is basically within the theme, and then it says your name, the commission's name, each and every commission and each and every person that is an applicant to participate.
Can we decorate those?
I don't know how you would decorate them, but we can, yes, I guess.
Like we can, I feel like our little mini,
Yeah.
we could pizzazz that up. Yeah.
Just give us some lead time on when you would need to have it
Okay.
in advance of the parade. In past years, Nick has sort of batched them so that he has been able to manage his time with the number of banners that he rolls out.
Okay.
So if you're going to need to decorate it and get it far in advance of the parade, we'll just need
him know.
a heads up on that.
Okay.
Yep, our signs last year were real small, but keep in mind that only one person is probably carrying them, so they can only be so big.
Okay.
And last year, they were just about 3 feet wide by about 2 feet. There wasn't a lot of room to work with, so
Right.
Okay.
you don't have to do it like last year by any means, but apparently Nick's gonna be your limitation.
Okay.
But it's Minuteman Press, isn't it?
Minutemen.
Is it Minuteman Press that you use?
I believe a lot of them are printed out here in-house on our plotter.
Okay.
Anything else? Okay, awesome. It'll be fun, as always. Okay.
While we're on this.
Oh, yeah.
While we're on this particular work plan item, I was just going to mention that Commissioner Hanson and I both volunteered at EcoFest and had a great time. It was a nice day. It wasn't actually raining like it was the previous year. And they kept us busy, and we worked on some setup and just miscellaneous things all over the festival. So it was pretty well attended. Unfortunately, John Giotta had injured his back, so he wasn't actually there, the director of the event. However, everyone stepped up and made it happen. So I think it was a fun event, and some pretty delicious food vendors there too.
Awesome.
Ross and I put in a lot of time.
Yeah,
Yeah, we put some hours in.
I'm sure. Well, when we do the roundtable too, I'd say if you have anything else to share, that's a good. I want to hear about the food especially.
I can tell you about the beer.
Oh, well, that too. But thank you. I'm glad you guys were able to make it to that. That's awesome. Okay, Commissioners Hanson and Elliott, are there any other guest speaker updates or topics you want to discuss with the full commission?
That was Commissioner Winter's job for this meeting.
Oh,
Just kidding. I think we're pretty much
you're set?
for the year, aren't we?
I think we're good. The only opening is in February, and actually, as we get toward the end of our year, sometimes we need a little more time as a commission to wrap up our work plan and do some of those things. So I don't feel that there's any driving need to fill that.
Staff, do you have any updates?
No, we have some coming up, including the organic parks, which I will present. DUDAC in January. So if we see a need between now and February, we can add a speaker at that time.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Okay, so the next is the best practices for diversity, equity, and inclusion. Commissioner Ritter, do you have anything to add? Or do you want to start there?
I would just say, first of all, thank you for sending all the various articles, Manager Stanton. It's been something I haven't been able to read all of them just because I'm kind of recovering from either vacations or volunteering and other things. But we will certainly like to look, or I know Chair Lapp and I will be reviewing those. We also plan on reaching out to you to schedule a time where we can kind of come in and work a little bit more on the specifics of what we might be able to do. I think the information is great, but I think really turning that into what specifically that we might be able to do to help you would be great. On the other side of that work plan item is regarding recruitment and identifying diverse candidates for commission vacancies that will come up next year. One definite and others potentially. I did speak with Councilman Joe Mosca. They're still waiting for a report to come from city staff with regards to some of the equity committee recommendations that were made earlier. But in the meantime, I'm going to work with the city clerk to get some background as to how we might be able to advertise those vacancies a little bit more in the community and reaching areas that perhaps we haven't reached before. So I'll hopefully have some updates for that next week or next month.
Thank you. You know, this is just a question on kind of tagging on to that last point. Do we have any opportunities for the general public to come and just learn about what it means to serve on a commission and what opportunities exist? Like, I joined during the COVID time, so I don't even remember what the experience was like beforehand. Like, I remember reading about it in the paper, but I can't fully appreciate what that buildup was. Do we have anything of like, get involved and come, like, spend an hour and come learn about the ways you can get involved in the city?
I don't know the full answer to your question, but I know that one of the things that was discussed at the most recent council meeting was that we will be having a citizens academy that will be beginning, and that will give the public an opportunity to not only understand commissions, but many other aspects and facets of the city. So that is one definite outreach item that other cities have and have incorporated. I've participated in them. They are outstanding, and we're really looking forward to building ours and making it top notch.
Awesome. Do you know when they're hoping to, I don't know by academy if it's like a multi-week thing or if it's like a one-off, but do you know when they're hoping to start?
Yeah, so I don't recall off the top of my head the exact date that they're looking to start. It's truly being formed as of the approval of it at the last council meeting. And it will be a 6 or 8 week program in which every week is dedicated to a certain aspect of the city. So Parks and Recreation will be combined with probably something else to be one section that those individuals who are selected to be in the academy will learn about. And then the subsequent week will be a different aspect, and so on and so forth.
Oh, so it's not just like open to the public, like you have to apply to be in this academy?
Yeah, there'll be like an application process just like there is to be on the commission. Residents can apply to be a part of the academy. If academies get too large, it generally is hard to manage the number of people. Like if a classroom with students gets too large, right? You have best practices for what that looks like. So I don't know that a specific number has been detailed, but I would guess it wouldn't be any larger than 30 citizens, and it'll be an annual academy.
Okay. All right. So it's a little bit different, I think, than what I was thinking in my head about just how you could just get the word out of these opportunities exist to the general public. And if you're interested in just learning what it means to be on a commission, you can come and just hear about it before you apply versus here's 8 weeks of intensive kind of training about what happens within the government, which is equally valuable, but probably less designed at just educating people about what it is to be on a commission.
Yeah, at this point, there isn't anything specific to learning what it's like to be a commission. I would hope that someone interested in being a commission would watch commission meetings so they could better understand. I mean, they're all posted, but we don't have specific outreach to lean in on that, but that may be something to discuss.
Okay, thank you. I'm just taking a quick note. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
I don't know how it happened. I think Commissioner Ritter, you were appointed the same time I was. There were 9 applicants when we applied. So this commission appears to be more popular than other commissions where they're having problems staffing it. But I don't remember how I heard about it. I know why.
Thank you. Yeah, I know, I appreciate that. Okay. Yeah, so I also have not had a chance to read through all of the latest articles you've sent, Manager Staten, but they're all in my inbox, and I will read them. And then I will look forward to kind of sitting together and figuring out what we can really do within the recreational programming to make sure that we are being as mindful about DEI. And then as we get closer to the commission turnover, better ways to just notify the public in general of what the opportunities are and how they can be more involved in the commissions in the city at large. So I hope there's a greater opportunity for diversity to lead us to just a broader range of interested parties too. Okay, thank you. Volunteer recruitment and implementation. Are there any updates on that, Commissioners Warren and Hanson?
I think we've almost scheduled a meeting. Is that right?
Yes, I believe we've almost scheduled a meeting. I believe I'm waiting for one committee member to respond to the email chain that's been sent out. And once I have a response, I can schedule said meeting.
Okay. But thank you for sending that out. I appreciate that. That's
And the big news there is that the software is ready.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so the software, we do have it ready. It's loaded onto an iPad. Staff have been working on using it. We've contacted some people that have some knowledge on both this software and other softwares. And I think when we meet, we'll go over the software, but also be looking to focus on strategies for recruitment and how it should look on our website. There's not a lot that we can deviate from on the software that's already been selected. So we'll be going over its use and then how we can recruit using it as a tool and use our website for that same reason.
That's very exciting. Okay, awesome. So number 6 are our continued support of PEP, Commissioner Warren, and PEP President and Commissioner Hanson. Any updates?
Very little movement on that so far.
Okay.
I'm still working on transition from the former president. It's going real slow. I actually saw him today, and we're probably a day or two away from a handoff.
Oh, congrats.
But I've been trying to recruit directors, and so far it's not been very successful.
Okay,
So, working on that.
okay, thank you. Commissioner Warren, do you have anything to add on that? Okay.
no.
Okay, so then number 7, research and planning for outdoor adult fitness equipment.
All right. Well, first of all, thank you for Commissioners Winters and Elliott for doing a nice report during my absence last month on this particular ad hoc item. There's really nothing new to report. We're still waiting, as far as I know, on some word on funding from the state. We are also waiting to hear back from Sandag regarding the possibility of maybe installing a couple kind of fitness trail apparatus along the new segment of the Coastal Rail Trail. So until some of those things get kind of worked out, we're kind of in a holding pattern unless you have anything else that you might add at this point.
No firm update on the state funding. We're still pretty optimistic that that's going to come through. And I think whether that comes through or not, the true value is if the ad hoc is able to provide recommendations on things to include or consider when we are in the design phase, that will be invaluable for whether it's for those projects or the regularly scheduled playground replacement projects. So I think hopefully by next meeting, we'll have more definitive word on some of that grant funding. I've seen some things come through, but it's just not definitive yet. And then Sandag, as far as I understand, we've been trading emails and phone calls with representatives, and it sounds like the design for the next phase of the CRT is substantially complete, and they are not usually quick to deviate from those things because it creates a whole host of rework and entitlements. So I think we have some other strategies for how we can look at those things once they're built out in the future. And hopefully now that we're more mindful of this as a part of our growth, thinking about those things earlier in the planning and design phases as well.
Having been an outdoor fitness instructor myself for a number of years, I am looking forward to the opportunity of helping with some options on the equipment that I might suggest, as well as kind of enjoying that type of apparatus in various cities across the world. So I'm excited to get to that point. Do you have anything else to add?
I just have a quick question. Is there another phase of the coastal rail trail that is waiting in the wings? Or is this phase that has been evidently, the planning has been completed already? Is that the last thing out there?
I'm not sure on where Sandag and the city are in terms of the overall build out of that, but the Coastal Rail Trail is, intended to go all the way through Leucadia and make a connection to the north. There is some information on Sandag's website about alternatives that they've analyzed to go through Leucadia, including the Encinitas Boulevard crossing all the way through. I'm just not 100% sure where that lies in the planning and if that's part of the Build NCC nexus or something else, but I can get some information and bring that back.
Yeah, that would be great. I guess we're kind of stymied because we don't want to miss another opportunity to get in early enough to have some sort of a shot at requesting the equipment be added. So that'd be a big help. Thanks.
So the next phase of the Coastal Rail Trail, as it goes through Encinitas, that is nearly completely designed, as Manager Norgard had mentioned, extends from where it currently ends at Swami's, there at that undercrossing, and then will extend to, I think, E or F Street. And it kind of follows, again, on the same side of the road, kind of where the path, there's currently kind of a path there now, so I imagine they'll just kind of follow that all the way down. The build out of the bridge, which looks pretty spectacular over Encinitas Boulevard, that's going to be a lot of money, so we'll have to see if that ever comes to fruition. I have interest in trying to understand what exactly is happening in Leucadia with regards to the Coastal Rail Trail. I kind of feel like they've put some DG down. It's like, well, is that going to be the new trail? And that's the walking path through there, kind of near the parking pods. They have a large drainage canal that goes along Vulcan, so it really doesn't have much room to the west of the railroad tracks for even a path. So I think Bob Keeley was working on that and had some Sandag maps as to what that vision is. So it might be worthwhile for us to come in and meet with him and get a little idea as to, is there something in there that we might be able to leverage towards our goal?
Yeah, and I think that's a good point. All of those maps that Sandag are considering, they're public and they're on their websites. That's actually the easiest way that I was able to find them, rather than our own internal files. And you're right, Leucadia is particularly constrained, and there's a number of alternatives that they considered, including east side and west side of the train tracks. But I'm just not sure where they are in terms of alternatives analysis and selection.
I have a quick question. Going back to Anna, thank you, Anna's presentation with the mitigation fees. Would building a fitness court like this, is that something that you could use park development fees for, or no, because it's not already in the parks master plan?
I'd really have to check to see
Okay.
what the municipal code exact language is. I actually just looked it up right before we came in here, and what the Parks Master Plan says about that.
Okay,
And then we don't just draw down from that to build projects. It has to be prioritized and allocated
Yep.
by council through the budget process, as opposed to like when we have our revenue that comes in through like the cell phone towers and things like that.
I guess I'm just thinking if you are able to secure grant funding is there potentially an opportunity to use some of this park development funding we're receiving from the state? And I know in the Parks Master Plan, it did mention things like this type of kind of development and use for other fitness goals and activities. So maybe there'll be a way, if you are able to secure grant funding, that money could potentially help fund something like this. It's a thought, not really a question. Okay, that's it. Thank you. Okay. Number 8, the Trails Master Plan. I'm happy to give a quick update on this, though I want to ask first, we have not heard from Nick Buck that Outer Spatial is launched. It did.
It's coming this week. That
Okay.
was part of my operations report, but we'll just,
Well, I won't jump the gun then. Okay, so that's exciting. Our little ad hoc has just been kind of slowly visiting trails. And I think a lot of our feedback will change once Outer Spatial is live and we can reference that on site. So we're planning our next trail walk on, I think November 16th was the date. And we're gonna do the Rossini Trail through to Encinitas Community Park with our dogs, and then we're gonna go to the dog park. So we're gonna do a nice park tour. And our thought had been wait until that, and then we could have one sit down with you guys between Manchester and Rossini. But if Outer Spatial has been launched, it might change the conversation we wanna have anyway. So I'm holding off on scheduling with staff. And it sounds like by the time we do that walk, Outer Spatial will be available, so we can actually, and that's a great, very confusing trail to find. So I think it'll be a great trial run. And yeah, I think that's the only update I have for that.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank Chair Lappin for putting together the trail walks. And she did mention having a sit down to talk about what we've learned on those trails, but sort of based on Anna's presentation, that was a great little window to see how we can ask for things with development, and it might be nice to kind of learn from staff what projects are out there and how they're affecting trails and what things you have asked for. I think that might be really informative for us to know. And of course, that's great news about the Outer Spatial app. That's all.
yep, looking forward to the conversation on Manchester Preserve in particular to understand what we can do out there.
Well, I want to revisit with Outer Spatial
Yeah.
too. So, okay, wonderful. Thank you for the update. And please give Nick our most excited congratulations on being so close to that launch. I know he's been working on it a long time. Okay. Oh, that's it. Can we just quickly look at the event calendar before we close out of the work plan? I just think it's always helpful to see. So for commissioners who are looking to get involved and volunteer again, the Dia de los Muertos event is coming up October 29th. And then we will be dark in December again, which I think is just worth noting as well.
Is the movie still happening?
It happened.
Okay, I gotta get my dates right.
I know. I was like, wait, I think. Yep, this past weekend.
So it did happen, yeah.
Awesome. Okay, thank you. All right, park operations report.
As previously foreshadowed, the Outer Spatial app is going to go live this week, so we're looking forward to that. Please download when that's available. I looked today and I wasn't able to get it, but download it and start using it and let us know what you're seeing. If you see any bugs or issues, just please reach out. Same with the trail stuff. We want that feedback to increase usership of that. So hopefully that goes off without a hitch and we get a lot of good feedback. Also in the positive column today, we signed a contract with a contractor to replace the backstops at Cardiff Sports Park. So we're having a project kickoff meeting and beginning the permit intake process this week already. I have met with planning staff to do what we can to expedite the permit review process, and I'm optimistic that that will be pretty simple for the contractor. And so as soon as they are through that initial building permit process, they can order the materials, which have a longer lead time. And then we'll have a pretty definitive date on when they'll do the construction. Construction's only anticipated to take about 10 working days. So once we get through permitting and ordering the materials, we should be in pretty good shape. And we're going to be doing some work on the infields while the backstops are down, so that when they go up, the infields will be renovated as well. And then lastly, for me, we have a scope document for the Encinitas Community Park, analyzing and applying for changing the use for the major use permit out there for the sports courts. I looked at a couple of different contracting mechanisms that are available to us under the city's purchasing policy. I had initially thought about using some of our as-needed consultants that we have. However, I'm unsure how much the final effort will cost, what the total value of that will be, and I was a little nervous about using up some of the capacity. They're only allowed to use so much under each contract. So I'm actually going to go out to several planning firms to request scope and fees, and then we'll be able to select one under that. So that work is ongoing, and I had a meeting with planning just to make sure that we're asking all the right questions and they understand the entitlement process and they can be our partners through that. So that's an exciting step, and I'll keep you updated when we do have a contractor, consultant selected. And so that's it for my report. If you have any questions.
Well, those are very big updates. So congratulations. That's a lot of like big movement. Thank you for the updates. I don't have any questions, but go ahead.
On the sports courts that you're talking about, is this the initial feasibility, or are we past that stage?
It's essentially the initial feasibility. They need to look at the major use permit and the EIR that was done there to see what is possible.
I really enjoyed the park tour on the habitat restoration that we did last week. I was disappointed, though, that our beacons portion of that tour ended up getting rained out, surprisingly. I was just curious if, Manager Norgard, if you had any additional things that you wanted to share with us that you weren't able to share during that time that you might just kind of mention regarding beacons, because I know that is something that's really important to the community.
Yeah, sure. I think that's a good question, and it bears a moment to discuss. Essentially, we received a grant from the United States Fish and Wildlife Service in partnership with California State Parks for the bluff top restoration for the vegetation out there. And so in the first year, the invasive species were eradicated, and several hundred native species were planted in various sizes. Some of them were fairly small, some of them were medium-sized. And then the contractor sprayed the bluff with a hydroseed mix of native seed species, and then added straw wattles and jute netting in some areas just to make sure that we would have protection from excessive erosion. That contractor came out and hand watered every single plant for a year now. In the beginning, they came out every couple weeks, and then it was once a month. Over the summer, they would come out as needed if it got super dry. They would bring a water buffalo out, which is just a big water tank that you tow behind a truck, and you attach a hose to it and water them that way. And then park staff let them know that we actually have a hose bib at that location, so they don't need the water buffalo anymore, and it's actually easier just to connect to that and use our water. And so if you have a chance, it's worth going out to beacons and both looking down, but then also taking some or all of the trail down and looking up. And when you do that, you can see that on the northern end, you can see where the bluff failure landslide happened. We didn't have a lot planted there because that particular area of the bluff is fairly steep, and some of the areas are undercut. So there's not really a chance for viability there. But the other areas, depending on the time of the year that you go, will actually look fairly green and lush, and we had a really good showy wildflower season earlier this year. And the thing about natives to consider is that in the spring, you have species like Encinitas californica, which is basically beach sunflower, which they get big and green and yellow, showy flowers, and they're like, wow, that's fantastic. And then later in the year, they brown out, and you're like, wow, this doesn't look so great. But that's just part of their natural cycle. And to that effect, we have another planting cycle coming up this fall, winter. And so I'm actually going to meet with our contractor out there next week to determine all the plants that we're going to use and when we're going to go in and do the planting. And so we're going to plant about the same number of plants that we did the first time, and mixing it up with species that will stay green at different times. So we have some that we know are already green in the spring, and now it's like, okay, let's get some that are going to be green in the fall and the winter. And part of that will tier into some interpretive signage that we're going to put out there, because in my conversations with the public, depending on when you're there, it will temper input that you receive. Whether if the bluff is fairly brown, people will think it's not successful, but that's just education that we need to make sure that we get out to the public. So overall, it's a 5-year project lifespan. We've completed year 1, we're beginning year 2. The grant requirements are for a certain percent cover of native species at the end of 5 years, and a certain percent cover of invasive species. So you want way more natives and way fewer invasives. And I think we have a really, really good direction right now. The folks that I've talked to from both state parks and Fish and Wildlife Service are happy with the amount of cover that we have, the viability of the species that we have, kind of our maintenance and monitoring plan. So it's, like I said, it's a 5-year plan. We'll continue planting for the first couple of years, and then we'll get into more of just invasive control and monitoring. And so we have a partnership with the Fish and Wildlife Service, and they help us with some of the monitoring, both for the plant species, but as well as, butterflies, birds, and other things that we see out there. And we document all that, and it'll go into a final report that gets rolled up to both the Fish and Wildlife Service and the state.
Thank you very much for that. That gives a lot more detail that I was looking for. And it looks beautiful. I like what you have all done. I did have one question with regards to the very top of the bluff. Is there anything, any plans with regards to working on the guardrail or the fencing that's currently at the top that I think it's maybe a little more secure than it looks sometimes, but it is one of those things where I was just curious if there was a plan for replacing that or moving it back, or...
You will see a project come to the Planning Commission soon. I don't know the exact timing, but there is a project in CIP right now that is at 90% or more complete for design. We had a CPP meeting earlier this year. I attended that. We had a rather rigorous debate. But essentially the CIP project is to pull most of the Beacons project or parking lot back from the face of the bluff. And in particular where the sidewalk and that guardrail are, that will all move eastward, and the sidewalk will get wider. And the area where that sidewalk and guardrail are now, obviously that goes away. It will be bluff top again, and that will get planted with native species as well. In general, it will make walking through the area a little bit easier. By moving the parking lot back, they need to increase the angle of the parking spaces. They're angled now, but they need to increase them more just to make sure that they can maintain the width of the drive aisle for life safety vehicles to get through there. But that should be coming up pretty soon. The project is funded as far as I know. We had a CPP meeting. We're working through the permit process, and then that'll go to Planning Commission and then potentially Council.
Thank you.
Did anyone else have any other? Yeah.
You and I discussed just briefly the monitoring rod that they had for the fissure. It's back. And it was gone when we were there last Tuesday. I don't know. We were talking about how it gets removed by tourists or whatever.
There's been some vandalizing of the the route out there. So essentially there is a antenna that Scripps has installed so that their tilt meters and seismometers can communicate back to them. That had been knocked over a number of times. Scripps had reinforced it a couple times. I know at one point they tried a smaller antenna in possibly a different location. But when we see that it's broken, we let them know. Our staff are out there almost every day, and then Scripps folks are out there on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So, yeah, it's kind of an ongoing issue.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, Recreation Services report.
All right. So as you mentioned, we did have the movie in the park this past Saturday. And while we were showing bad guys, we also had bad weather. So about 30 to 45 minutes into the movie, we called the movie. We anticipated additional rain in the area, and we are already losing participants to the drizzle that was happening. So unfortunately, we had canceled that event despite our best efforts. We did bring up Dia de los Muertos, and with work plan item number 2 being volunteering and attending, I'd like to give you a little bit more details about Dia de los Muertos. Not only do we have the event on Saturday, but also on Thursday, October 27th, there's an event at the library that is also a Dia de los Muertos event that runs tandem with it, and it's going to be ballet folklorico and printmaking. And there is a volunteer opportunity there to help with that arts and economic impact survey that Chair Lappin and Vice Chair Ritter both are familiar with, having done it at the movie previously in Glen Park. I think that you could both speak to the ease of conducting that survey and your experience. I would invite you to do that. In addition to that, at Dia de los Muertos, that opportunity also exists between 12 p.m. and 4 p.m. To do the economic impact survey. And then also, as we are loading different vehicles and supplies in and out, there is an opportunity from 8 to 12. We need adult volunteers to stand at the barricades, and I know it's not a glamorous job, but we can't have teenagers, and a lot of our volunteers at this event are teenagers or young adults who come from one of the local community colleges to help, and we need adults from 8 to 12 to help move those barricades and make sure that people who are not affiliated with the event are not coming, are not entering the area. That need is also from 12 to 4, but you don't have to take one of those 4-hour shifts for the survey or the barricades. You can come for a half hour and do the survey if you want. You could come for an hour and do a barricade. We're just looking for any help that the commission would be interested in assisting with. We already talked about the holiday parade, so I can skip right over that because you all are on it. And then immediately following the holiday parade, we have registration starting for winter programming, and that will start at 8 a.m. on Monday, December 5th. So we are currently in draft 1 of our winter recreation guide, and goes through a couple iterations to get that as close to perfect as we possibly can. So staff is diligently working on that. And my final update is a shout out to Supervisor Elmuse. She was selected out of a nationwide pool of applicants to attend the Local Government 2030 event in Omaha, Nebraska, November 3rd through the 6th. And 50 government professionals, all under the age of 40, were selected to attend this conglomerate to better understand the future of government from a young professional's perspective and to project forward best practices. And so they're currently writing a paper based on the opinions and practices of the cities from all over the nation and all the different departments that are being represented. So we're delighted for her to represent our own great city and also bring back some knowledge and input that we can hopefully implement or consider for future.
Manager Staten, will you email us to specifically the needs for Dia de los Muertos? I wrote some of them down while you were talking, but just if you don't mind putting it in writing and then it can live in inboxes, I think there's probably a lot of people who can help, but just that reminder might be really helpful.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Anyone questions or comments? Okay. Oh, no, none? No, no, yeah, okay. Okay, commission reports. Commissioner Warren, do you mind if we just,
No, not at all.
every time my eyes just go right there.
No, thank you, Manager Norgard, for the tour. It was great. It was equally as awesome as Tracy's, Manager Staten. I know you mentioned you're competitive about that. But both had subject matter experts, and that was very helpful. There were no games or activities, but that's okay.
There was rain.
But that was, yes, and thanks for winding up what you were going to present at Beacons, which I believe is right behind you, too. Let's see, what else? Congratulations, David. And I wanted to say thank you to Commissioner Hanson for stepping up again with PEP and also the holiday parade. I think it feels like it's moving faster than it did last year. So we all appreciate that. And I think that's all.
Thank you. Commissioner Hanson?
I've got nothing.
Okay.
I'm literally a little tired, so it's been a good meeting. Thank you for everything. Thanks for the tour last Tuesday. I'm sorry everybody left when they did. I begged everybody to stay, but
Yeah, right.
it didn't happen. And if you're interested, I've got some video to show you. It was a fantastic night, but thanks for filling us in on what we did miss.
Commissioner Elliott?
Yeah, I just want to say, I thought EcoFest was especially impressive this year. I know it's not, officially a city event, but we do participate and we do help with it. And it was really well done, and I thought they had some very interesting areas for children's activities, more than I remembered, and I thought that was a good thing. Thanks again for that wonderful parks tour, for all of you who worked on it, and I know you thank you for your leadership on that, Manager Norgard. And also, shout out to the Botanic Garden for all the work they've done on the habitat and for being there to explain it to all of us.
Thank you. Vice Chair Ritter?
I'll also second, third, fourth the comments on the fun plant, the rehabilitation habitat tour. I really, before that, didn't quite appreciate the work that you do in open space, open space work that you do that I just was completely unaware of. And I know that as I've worked on the Cardiff election form and working with the community, I'm coming up with questions. One of the things that we often see coming up is people want open spaces. And I feel that communicating the work that the Parks and Rec Department is doing in rehabilitating these spaces and making them more native and presenting them so that we can actually have improved trails through them. It's all fantastic, and I feel like there's a certain feeling that Encinitas is kind of built out and that open spaces really don't exist too much beyond where we're at. However, I feel like just taking the walk where we did the Moonlight Parcels, where we went back behind Cottonwood, and I found these little hidden places that I didn't fully appreciate were there before. And I appreciate the efforts that are going into rehabilitating those spaces. EcoFest was fun. I think their zero waste display was really good to kind of help further train people to put their waste in the proper container. I think it was great that they had photos that kind of showed how that whole process works so that it can provide additional training. there are great things that are happening on that San Alejo-Manchester intersection for public safety improvements and trail connectivities to the San Alejo Lagoon. I will update the commission hopefully next month on the exact dates of when a lot of that new improvements will be made. With that, that's all I have.
Thank you. Yes, thank you, Manager Norgard, for the tour. I had never seen any of that, so I'm embarrassed to say it, but appreciative that that's now changed. It was really, really awesome just to be taken outside of the context in which we know a lot of these spaces already. And I've been to Moonlight a bunch, I've been to Cottonwood a bunch, never beyond really the playgrounds or the kind of parking lots. So thank you again for opening our eyes to that. I know we cannot discuss it, but I'm just gonna mention it because I have heard a lot about trying to acquire funding for the Verity underpass in Cardiff. And I don't know if there's any implications for Parks and Rec in that. So if there's anything relevant information and grants funding comes into play, it would just be good to hear if there's any Park and Rec implications for rail trail or connectivity and all that down the line. So maybe at a future meeting. I cannot wait for the dog park to reopen. I'm anxiously counting down the days. And and I think those are the only updates I have or roundtable reports I have. We've been at Cardiff Sports Park a lot lately. And everything's been really great and running smoothly over there from a sports perspective. So just thank you for that. And I think with that, we can adjourn our meeting at 6:58 p.m. Thank you. Thank you.